Today's movie watchers are spoiled with lesbians. Yet, how did we even begin to get lesbian in our films? We have sad teenage lesbians, we have sad adult lesbians, we have Natasha Lyonne as a lesbian, we have lesbians with guns, we have lesbians escaping heterosexual marriages. But how did we get all these lesbians in the first place? Let's rewind to find out. Yep, did some basic research and figured out the exploration of lesbianism in films advanced through an understanding of time period and intersecting identities. Cool. What does that mean, and are there any examples? Yes and yes. I'll explain what I mean by that, and I'll provide examples. 2 examples: Desert Hearts and The Watermelon Woman. While I discuss these 2 20th century films about lesbianism, make sure to look out for 1. What issues do they seek to navigate within the identity through their narratives? And 2. How do they tackle their representation differently through their styles? Desert Hearts. Desert Hearts is a 1985 film adaptation of the 1964 novel Desert of the Heart by author Jane Rule. Donna Deitch, the openly lesbian director of Desert Hearts, had attained rights to Rule's original work with the goal of adapting the lesbian love story. This romantic drama follows a tight-wound Columbia professor, Vivian Bell, and a free-spirited artist of the West, Kay Rivers. This story takes place in Reno, Nevada. Mandy Merck recounts Deitch's intent with the film's setting. Donna Deitch herself argues, quote, "I didn't want to put it in 70s New York. It's not about lesbian custody or any particular issues. It's essentially a love story," end quote. Desert Hearts, taking place in 1959, dates at about 26 years before it was produced. A lesbian couple in the late 50s would no doubt have a more difficult time than in the 70s. Deitch clarifies her goal was to convey a love story, isolated in the West. Vivian and Kay are a couple to root for. Desert Hearts is a classic Hollywood happily ever after. That's it. The only thing that separates Desert Hearts from other love stories is that heteronormativity acts as the force preventing their relationship from thriving. Despite facing pressures to do so, the film's couple is consistent in their resistance against conformity. Desert Hearts was a landmark film. It's widely regarded as one of the first feature-length films to depict lesbians in a positive light with a non-tragic ending. Even nowadays, it's rare to see films and TV not heed to the bury your gays trope. So Desert Hearts was really the film that paved the way for this queer joy, and for lesbians in particular. The coming out narrative no longer only led to disaster or death, or was treated as a villain origin story. Vivian's coming out broke tension and sexual repression built throughout the film in one climactic moment. This is where I discussed the film's lack of censorship. Deitch was no doubt successful in cultivating Kay and Vivian's love story, their rough moments as well as their tender ones. Naturally, Desert Hearts also famously screened a lengthy sex scene between the couple. The scene was largely well received by sapphic audiences because it was very needed at the time. After being starved not only of successful romances, but shoved to the sidelines, erased, and villainized entirely, who doesn't want to watch 2 conventionally attractive women embrace and touch each other with no background music for a few minutes? On a more serious note, Rana J. Berenstein says this about the scene's significance. Quote, "Given that until recently lesbians have not had a tradition of pornography, again, unlike gay men, sex, or at least the promise of sex, has a central role in current films." End quote. Overall, this romantic drama succeeds in its satisfactory effects. It's a queer coming-out story. It centers around a clear will she, won't she question for Professor Bell. But that all being said, Desert Hearts is superbly linear. Deitch relies on the representation of basic themes necessary to understanding queerness, like social rebellion, sexual repression, identity acceptance, and eventual pride. Desert Hearts, no pun intended, is heartfelt. The film is cheeky, erotic, and turned a story wrought by desire and anguish into a lesson about the mysterious persistence of true lesbian love. Desert Hearts' positive portrayal of this greatly contributed to New Queer Cinema, or the NQC movement as it is abbreviated. Desert Hearts' style. To make any story centering lesbians palatable at this time, Deitch made sure her film was nothing short of visually appealing. Deitch chose to dress the cast in neutral tones. The muted colors fit well with the desert environment and strung the story to its conservative period. But above all, the costume choices helped the actors' faces stand out. They are all strikingly beautiful.
Oh, you look like 2 desserts.
Beg your pardon.
You know, sometimes I honest to God wish I knew what it felt like to be a gorgeous woman.
Andrea Weiss makes an excellent point about the integral element of aesthetic appeal in Desert Hearts in a 1986 issue of Cineast. I believe her words may give us a little insight into the film's mainstream success. Weiss writes, quote, "No one could call a character in Desert Heart stereotyped, or fat either for that matter. So preoccupied is the film with making sure you feel sympathetic toward everyone, the lesbians as well as the straights. In this regard, the film seems to embody several voices rather than one overriding voice." End quote. Desert Hearts offered something general audiences could root for, and did so by engaging our eyes. There's nothing to wince or squint at. It's shot beautifully, lit in lots of natural light outdoors and soft ambient light indoors. The dusty appearance makes every image easy on the eyes. The Hollywood shooting style makes the story predictable and digestible. And the film's cast is noticeably homogeneous in background, composed of mainly white Americans. This detail strips the story of other political tensions. A story that does choose to work through these tensions is The Watermelon Woman. The Watermelon Woman. The Watermelon Woman is an original piece. It's a romantic comedy and drama all about lesbians. It was written, directed, and starred in by Cheryl Dunye. The film is a first of its kind, the first feature directed by a black lesbian. The Watermelon Woman takes place during the time of its release, 1996, and contrary to Desert Hearts, Dunye's story thrives in its urban setting, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The story centers around Cheryl, an amateur documentarian who works as a video store employee. Audiences see the ambitious filmmaker transform in her journey to research and develop a documentary about Faye Richards, a black actress well known for playing the role of the mammy in 1930s Hollywood films. Dunye's seemingly authentic archival footage of Faye Richards was paramount to the reception of the film. It's important to note upon its release, many audience members watched the story unfold, believing Richards to be a real historical figure and icon to black lesbianism.
Can you believe it? Faye's a sapphic sister, a bulldagger, a lesbian. Oh my gosh, I knew something was up when I saw Plantation Memories. But with Martha Page, Faye was really swinging back then. I guess we have a thing or two in common, Miss Richards. The movies and women.
Here, Dunye is not posited as an isolated lesbian confused and on the brink of her coming out narrative. Instead, she surrounds herself with a queer family and shows determination to uncover more queer representation from the past. Dunye uses Faye and her own self-insert character to explore themes of the Black American identity and delineate the cross-section between that and the lesbian identity. She does this by drawing several direct parallels between the characters' queer interracial partnerships. By understanding Faye Richards, Cheryl understands herself and her own prevailing struggles as a black lesbian. But by the end of the film, Dunye reveals Faye Richards to be a fictional figure. After convincing audiences of Faye's realism, Dunye points out that she had to fabricate Faye's story and identity to fill in a part of history black Americans commonly miss out on. Andrea Weiss in Queer Cinema writes of the disparity between representation of white versus black lesbians in the NQC movement. Quote, "Working-class lesbians of color found themselves excluded from both the luxury of the utopian separatist lifestyles and from a universal lesbian mythology extrapolated from specific personal, primarily white middle-class, lesbian identity." End quote. Oftentimes, black Americans don't get to enjoy more complex versions of their identity through historical icons. How can they understand themselves if they have no one to look up to? As I mentioned, this film is a comedy. While it tackles very serious and at times uncomfortable topics, it strives to do so in a light tone. A lot of the comedy in The Watermelon Woman hinges on the friendship between Cheryl and her coworker Tamara. Tamara doesn't let up on Cheryl for her obsession with Faye Richards. Tamara finds Cheryl's motive strange because she's confused as to why Cheryl likes to put more emphasis on her work than her love life. However, when Cheryl does find a partnership with Diana, a white woman helping her on her documentary on Richards, Tamara criticizes Cheryl for ignoring the red flags Diana puts up as an outsider to their shared identity as black lesbians.
I don't even have a key to her place.
Really?
Yeah. Diana gave me the keys to her place last week.
I did not invite you over here to talk about your wannabe black girlfriend.
Tamara, Diana doesn't want to be black.
It comes out later, Diana was indeed a fetishizer of her black partners. This truth emerges in tandem with Cheryl figuring out the exploitative nature Faye Richards had with white woman director Martha Page, the woman who brought her to fame, or rather gave her visibility in mammy roles. The struggles Cheryl has with Tamara's nagging represent the lesbian identity beyond just the general experience. The film explains how interracial partnerships, like hers with Diana and like Faye's with Martha's, can harbor ulterior motives and betray the Black queer family. Dunya also tackles the struggle of Black Americans in the entertainment industry through her mirroring of Faye's career decades prior. They're both involved in filmmaking, but require the incessant help of their white counterparts for connections and recognition up in their fields. The Watermelon Woman. Style. As for aesthetics, Dunya did not necessarily aim for the Watermelon Woman to appeal to mass audiences in America like Desert Hearts did. She was less concerned with placating them, rather, she opted to create a story that would resonate with others who shared her identity. In that same vein, her cast was mostly composed of Black Americans and also featured a straight interview sequence showcasing Philly's diverse population. Dunya's film was low budget, but balances multiple shooting styles. She intertwines interview segments with handheld B-roll and frequently cuts back to static angles presenting the main storyline in a neater, more traditional fashion. The Watermelon Woman is also mostly shot in deep focus with a closed-off aperture. The drama lends itself to dialogue rather than through the film's cinematography. The costuming was vibrant and typical of a mid-90s American color palette, which matches the setting overall. Pivoting to the archival footage of Faye Richards manufactured for the film, Clitha Mason writes of how this kind of representation highlights the unequal narratives lesbians are presented depending on their racial background. Quote, "The Watermelon Woman exposes the gaps and lacks of NQC by privileging narratives from Black, female, lesbian perspectives." End quote. Desert Hearts is a lesbian love story that sets the baseline for positive rep in the community. Meanwhile, The Watermelon Woman seeks to consider more complex identities, beyond that of the white middle-class lesbian. Both films are valuable in their service to wider lesbian representation, but do so at different depths. They both serve their respective purposes, and we should thank them for paving the way for the lesbian films we see today. Thank you for watching. Bye!